Hi, everybody. This is a different format for our show tonight. Usually I am behind the scenes. My name is Jesse Weiler, and I'm here with Rhonda and Dave. Rhonda, this is new for you, huh?
It is. I'm normally the one asking questions, so it's very different to be receiving them. And I've dragged my husband into it too. And I thought, I don't think many people have gotten to meet David, and maybe this is a good opportunity to do so.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and of course, I get to be on camera where I belong. No, I'm very thankful to be in this partnership with you in Vocation Ministry, and part of the Vocation Ministry is to talk to couples. And what better couple to talk to than the woman who helped bring Vocation Ministry into this world and to help people find their vocations and help people learn about religious orders, all the different religious orders around the world. But really, I want to hear about your marriage and how you keep things holy, some of the difficulties, some of the joys about the married life, so that we can also tell people, this is what marriage really is, because I think sometimes our culture can warp that. So first of all, I really want to hear your story. I want to hear how you met, and I want to hear about how you knew that you were going to get married.
We were at a country and Western dancing establishment in Houston. Okay, so let's put this out there. I'm born and raised Texan, and so we do that. We country and Western dance here. And David, coming down from Michigan, learned how to dance really well. And so we met there, and he asked me to dance. He had a black cowboy hat on. I remember that. And I just remember thinking he was gorgeous. First of all, I remember thinking that, and he danced really well, and we just kept dancing. We didn't stop.
Well, you know how we met, right? And this is how it works in Texas. It was my roommate's fraternity brother's girlfriend's best friend was Rhonda. And so it's like 6 degrees of separation for Kevin Bacon. Well, in Texas, everybody's 6 degrees separation. But that's just how things work.
And so when we were introduced, we really did. I mean, we had plans then for the next night, and we just never looked back. And we still love to dance. And I'm so thankful that God put David into my life.
Was faith an element of your relationship from the very beginning, or is that something that blossomed throughout your marriage?
Well, that's pretty funny in the fact that I was not even, I wasn't Catholic at this point. I had just been baptized into the Methodist Church about a year prior to this. And I don't.
It really wasn't. And to be completely honest, I mean, it wasn't. We were like typical, like most kids, is you kind of walk away from the church as you go through that certain phase in your life. And I have to credit one of my friends that also moved down from Michigan. And she said, listen, if you ever want to get married in the Catholic Church, you have to be a member of a church. So I had already joined one of the churches, but I hadn't attended on a regular basis. But I knew that was something that had to happen. And so it was after we met, and we started kind of evolving in our relationship, where this became more and more important. And we asked, okay, well, where are we going to get married? In the Catholic Church or the Methodist Church? And it was easy for me. I said, well, you have only one choice. It's the Catholic Church, and that's where I belong. So it's not that it was present in our life like a lot of others, but there's always this little seed back there. And so people, I guess one of the stories I would say to people is, you walk away, but the doors are always open to come back. And it's interesting that I think when it's ingrained in you, is that there's that kind of that drawing, there's this attraction that actually brings you back into the church. And so I think it was after we got married when we said, okay, we have to pick a church.
Yeah, to be our own home parish. Like, right, we had been in through our dating and engagement, we started going to church more in the Catholic Church together more. So it's not like it just wasn't there at all. We just started going to church together, and it was foreign to me. obviously, you know, coming from not much at all, then being baptized in the Methodist Church the year before to coming into the Catholic Church, you know, is very overwhelming because there's so much to know.
Yeah. And we were one of those, you know, hey, we're going to sit in the back row, right? Hoping that no one sees us. We want to be that, hey, we're here, but don't ever look at us or call on us. And we're sitting in the back. And then typical Rhonda, it was, we were at Prince of Peace and they had a ministry fair. And Rhonda said, hey, we're going to get involved in the church. Come on, let's go. So, of course, we're walking around to the ministry fair booth, to all the different places. And one of them happened to be a couples ministry. And she said, hey, that's it. This is what we're going to do. So if you know our relationship is once Rhonda says, hey, that's what we're going to do, typically that's what we're going to wind up doing. But it was actually really fortuitous, I'll use that word, to go to that fair because we met some of the most holy Catholic couples that I've ever met in my life. These are excellent examples of our faith living out, especially marriage. And it was through that group where I think the real transformation occurred. And so we realized we were way behind in the learning curve. We were way behind in the amount of children we had. A lot of our friends had 5, 6 kids. We were only working on 1, I think, at the time. And they kind of looked at us because we're not driving the big van. We said, hey, we're working on this, you know, it's just whatever, you know, God blesses us with. We were only blessed with 2 children, so I can't apologize for that. That's just the way it worked. And apparently that was all we could handle at the time.
Yes. So we fast forwarded through. So Prince of Peace is where I actually came into the church after we were married, and not at the Easter Vigil like normal people. I gave birth the night of the Easter Vigil when I was supposed to come into the church because that's when I went through RCIA while pregnant with our daughter, Abby. So Abby was then baptized and I was confirmed at the same Mass June 13th in 1999. And then it was shortly thereafter that we found this couples ministry and we got really like involved. And in formation too, we both went through a program called Familia, which is it's not Spanish for family, while it is Spanish for family, but it's not meant that. We basically, it was an apostolate of Regnum Christi, and we read the encyclicals of St. John Paul II. It was a 4-year program. I stayed in our formation with our group for 8 years. And we just kept learning and kept learning and kept learning. And David went at the same time. I was going through Familia for women and he was going through Familia for men, which I think was a huge blessing for our marriage because I didn't know what it meant to be a Catholic woman, a Catholic wife, a Catholic mom. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know why I should love Mary, why she should be my mom. Like, you know, I just think cradle Catholics take a lot for granted, you know, because they just grow up with it and all of it. When you don't grow up with anything, to come into the Catholic Church, it's like going from 0 to 100 miles per hour over a very short period of time. And I just learning about the saints. And so we went through a pretty intense formation process.
Right. And a lot of our social circles were through the church and these other couples. And so it was kind of our own little fraternity that we joined. And again, it's 85 couples, so it was a pretty big fraternity. But we're surrounded with excellent examples and people kind of going through the process in different stages through their marriage, through their lives. And so eventually we wound up joining the group that was running this ministry. And again, I think that was just kind of a natural evolution for us to make this journey. And we moved from the back row sitter to the front row sitters. I just, one of the best things we did is when our kid Abby was a year and a half, and we moved to the front row. And it was that way she could see and she could pay attention. And so rather than the back where everybody's goofing off and it's noisy, we're sitting in the front, so you have to pay attention. And I think that really helped our kids, because then when our son Gabriel came along, he had no choice. He knew no difference. So he was sitting in the front row. Yeah. And a funny story is I think he was about 1.5. I said, hey, you better behave. The priest is watching you and he knows who you are. And he's like, Dad. So of course I told this to the priest. So one day on Sunday, he processes in, he turns and he looks right at my son. He says, "I'm watching you, Gabriel." And he proceeds up onto the altar. And my son turns and looks at me. He goes, "He knew my name." I said, "I told you, behave yourself." Which is he's a real good kid. He does behave, and he still serves, 10 years he's served at the altar until he's going to leave for college soon. Anyway, just little things that just, I think, naturally progressed through our lives and this growth in our marriage.
Absolutely. I have so many questions for you guys, because this is like not your typical, Catholic marriage story. You guys came into the faith together and you were learning at the same time together. So what was that like to be, like you said, you have all this perception of, what a Catholic couple should be. And here you guys are breaking that mold. And first of all, I think that's wonderful, because I think it allows people to see that we're all different. We all do things in a different way. And there's no set way to do any of this. And the Spirit calls us all in many different ways. So what was that like to have to be, just placed in that environment and have to kind of catch up, so to speak, with everybody around you?
Well, I felt like, so David is a cradle Catholic, and but I felt like we were still learning along the way. I mean, he would always say, "Oh my gosh, I don't know that. I don't remember that. I don't," he had typical, catechism.
1970s, early
right?
80s catechism. It was kind of a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But a lot of it was, again, we're surrounded by other couples that were going through this. And so you can ask questions. You're hearing things. The internet is great because you can look all this up. Before, it was a catechist book that you would look up, and it was probably sitting on your shelf gathering dust. Well, now there's a lot of Catholic answers. There's a lot of things you can listen to, watch on the internet. These great examples. We listen to different speakers come in to this ministry, and they would tell us all these crazy examples of their marriage. And so we realized that, ours is very atypical, I guess, or maybe it is typical. But you realize that there is no set path for people. They come from all sorts of different situations and come in. And again, it's as you're winding up in study groups, as you're listening and uncomfortable, and you're listening to other people talking about these things, and you're kind of sweating a little bit, hoping no one asks you a question. You really wind up asking yourselves these questions, and it's making little course corrections, I guess, as you go. It's like sailing a boat. You're just little course corrections along the way.
I feel like the biggest advice, besides keeping the sacraments close in the marriage, like I think that was one of the things that, once we made a commitment that when I said I was going to come into the church, and the main reason I did that was that I wanted us to have unity for our family, because I did not have that growing up. I had a dad who didn't want the Bible read in the house, and my mom was Methodist. God was never mentioned, no connection to Jesus whatsoever. I didn't want that for my family. So I'm like, okay, well, what does it mean to be Catholic and be married in the Catholic Church? And to be married in the Catholic Church means I needed to raise my children Catholic. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. So that's a whole nother level. So this evolution happened in the fact that I was learning along the way what does this mean to be Catholic? What does this mean to count on the saints or ask the saints for help? What does this mean? I feel like it's a constant learning, and that's for everybody. I don't think we ever stop learning about our faith.
That's my joke in the sacristy now. So I'm an acolyte. I'm also a Eucharistic minister, also a sacristan. Gabriel, our son, is also an altar server, and he's a MC, and he helps train some of the altar servers. But one of my ongoing jokes to new Eucharistic ministers is when they're in the sacristy is, where does this go? How does this work? What is this about? I said, every day I come in here, every day I'm learning something new. So it's only been, I think I have about 20, 30 more years left to figure everything out. But every day I go in, I learn something new. And so it's a constant pattern.
And I think that's the same way with our marriage. I mean, that's I would love for new people, that people who are just discerning marriage to know that, you're constantly learning new things about each other. And I think that in a relationship, there's always a saint, and that's David. And there's a saint maker, and that's me.
I have this recorded. I just want to make sure that everybody understands.
Well, who knows? That may not make the cut.
That might not make the cut. Oh my!
We may have to edit this out for the podcast. What has been the most difficult, an unexpected aspect of marriage that has kind of thrown you for a loop?
Wow. Well, I think that there are a lot of challenges when you're challenges. COVID has been challenging. And I think for a lot of married couples, it has been challenging 24/7. Like that wasn't what we came into our marriage. We were never together so much. And so when you are together, you can either be iron sharpening iron, and still even with iron sharpening iron or gravel sharpening a diamond, there's some rubbing. There's going to be some challenges. And I think that being honest and a lot of communication's got to happen.
Sometimes louder than others.
It happens, but
I think one of the biggest challenges too is when you have two people that are type A, is that you have a leader and a follower, and you have to learn that in some instances you're the leader, and in some instances you're the follower. So for Vocations Ministry, Rhonda's the leader. I'm the follower. I'm behind the scenes. I'll take direction. I'll set things up. I'm just there. I'm tote and carry whatever she needs to support. If I'm traveling all around for work, she's doing whatever she needs to support. So you have to learn it's a lot of give and take. It's a lot of sacrifice. And again, I think the biggest challenge for us has always been someone has to be a leader, someone has to be a follower, and those roles switch. So sometimes it's a bit of conflict, friction.
Yeah, it happens.
But again, I think we're very vocal, so we communicate a lot. And again, sometimes at a louder volume, but
that's all right.
I think that's great because these things are always out in the open.
But we always keep the sacraments close, like that. We've always are bringing it back to Christ and each other in our family. That has been a priority from day one. Once I entered the church, I were like, okay, then we are all in. Here we are. We may not do it perfectly, but we are trying.
Ephesians, right?
Mm-hmm. Submissive.
Yeah. So it was an interesting story. So when we went through marriage prep in the Catholic Church, Rhonda, not seeing these readings before, said, hey, I think I know what readings I want. I said, okay, great. And they handed us this little book. And in the book, it says, here's your readings. And she says, where's the rest I get to choose from? And there's not any other choices. And one of the readings, of course, is Ephesians. And it's, women, be submissive to your husband. And so Rhonda was like, who are they to tell me this? Are you kidding? And I think, but that's probably one of the most important readings, because the second part puts a lot of onus on the guy, because our job is absolutely harder. You have to love like Jesus loved the church. I mean, hello, no one's going to be able to do that. I mean, you're going to have to just work insanely hard to that. But when you look at that reading and the important it is to marriage, and I remember us having an argument one time. She's like, you're supposed to love me as Jesus loved the church. And I said, you're supposed to be submissive. When you really look at that, it is absolutely what we talk about, where it's about giving and taking. It's about leading and following. It's about what you put into your marriage equals what you're going to get out of it.
And to put things straight, I was, again, I didn't have the Bible read in the house and all the things. So I understand that the Ephesians now. I understand it and love it. And so I would have no problems of being at my wedding if it were now. It was just hard back then.
So what are, other than the two beautiful children that you have, what are the most surprising fruits of your vocation that, kind of, again, were unexpected, things that you didn't think would become so fruitful?
What's really crazy to me is that people now look to us as examples. And I think that's one of the fruits, is that, we were far from the perfect example, but now we have younger couples looking to us, asking us questions, other families asking us questions, and people look to us and I still think that we're very far from perfect, but it's really, that's the biggest unexpected fruit I could think of, is that people now ask us questions and assume that we are the example. So I think we've kind of evolved in our roles, but it's a little humbling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hello. I mean, I think it's just crazy anytime, being the convert, that I'm being asked to give workshops for priests around the country. And, that wouldn't not have happened. That fruit would not have happened if we weren't strong enough to sustain that, because it takes both of us to be able to have a nationwide ministry that's affecting change all over in so many different ways. It just would not have happened without David's support and encouragement, even from the very, very beginning. So that's a real fruit. How could we imagine that our marriage would be able to be the foundation for something like that? I would never have expected that.
So we're going to go a little bit longer because I have one more question I've been dying to ask. Rhonda, you found your vocation already. Your vocation is the married life. Why do you care so much about those entering a religious order or diocesan priesthood or anything like that? Why is that so important to you as somebody who's already found your vocation and is trying to do all the things that you're supposed to be doing as a husband and wife, and then adding this ministry for other people in their vocation? Why is that so important to you?
Well, I feel like if we want to build up the church, if we want the church to be around for a long time, we need more priests, we need more sisters and brothers, we need more holy marriages, because all of those are in the devil's target in a big way, and he's trying to take them all down. And it's so unfortunate that that's the case, but we have to fight for the ones we have. We need to affirm those who've already said yes. And we need to help young people realize that these options are still there, that they can still be a religious order priest. They can be a Dominican. They can be, for sisters. There's so many options out there. And I just don't think that as a society, our culture used to be very vocational. There was an uncle who was a priest and an aunt who was a sister. There were sisters in the classroom. And that's not the case anymore. So part of a Vocation Ministry's role is just to put it out there, and in social media, through workshops, through any way we can imagine, get it out there so that people know all the options, and that the church is built upon the hidden gems like the cloistered nuns and the monks, right? I mean, that there's still that option out there. And I guess how amazing is that coming from I didn't have anything, no faith whatsoever growing up, didn't know anything about God. I want others to know not only about these religious orders and vocations. I want them to know about Christ and have an encounter with Christ, and let the Holy Spirit figure out what he or she is supposed to do.
Well, I absolutely love that answer, and I think you hit the nail on the head. And what types of services do you provide at Vocation Ministry, and where can people find out more information about the work that you do?
So we're evolving as a ministry as well. We started out with, I was just going to write a pamphlet that turned into a book. And that book, 100-Fold, A Guide to Parish Vocation Ministry, is now the A to Z guide to how to create a culture of vocations at a parish. And so then that led to workshops. So giving workshops to priests and parishioners, to teachers, to catechists, to Catholic school principals, which is so amazing to me that that's now happening. And then now we're having, in the digital space, not only does our digital footprint is pretty wide, and Facebook and Instagram and English and Spanish and discernment groups online, the Veil, and the collar. These are both online at Facebook. You can have, there are 550 women in this discernment group online. It's just amazing to me. And then we're producing events like Behind the Veil and Behind the Habit to find out more about inside life of a convent. What does that look like with different religious orders, and same with the religious orders for men. So, and I just don't know what the Holy Spirit has in store. Like, there's just more. The onion just keeps being peeled back, and more offerings, because the church needs it so desperately.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Rhonda and David. And it's so great to hear from you, the founder of Vocation Ministry, to hear more about your life and your passions in regard to the ministry here. So thank you so much both for your time. And this has been a real pleasure to be on this side of the camera and production for this wonderful conversation. So thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. God bless you.